गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीराजनचारि नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्.
For reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva the author. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna
Shinvatam Sakatha Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaha Ridhyantasto Vadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam.
Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul, in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashta Praishu Bhadreshu
Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
All that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So we have a reading today from, it's amazing how much easier it is to recite the verses when I'm not facing a whole bunch of help-ready stuff from that. I didn't know I was nervous, but I guess it makes a difference. But, however, I missed them. I was actually thinking of them when I thought about this class, about when they didn't come. So anyway, we're on text 45, right?
Right.
But we are recording it so that they can watch later if they want.
Watch later, okay. Exactly. Now they know, if they watch, that they make me a little bit nervous, but I want them to hear.
46, I
Right,
think.
46 now?
Yeah, it should be fine.
Because 45 was yesterday.
45, oh, okay. I forgot what I saw. That's why I placed on the example. I would explain that. Okay. Te sadhu krita sarvartha te sadhu krita sarvartha. This is the long one here, break it up. Yatva Adyantikam Gyatvatyantikam
Atmanaha
Yatvat yantikam atmanaha
Yatva Antantikam Atmanaha
Manasa
Manasa
Darayam Asur
Asur
Manasa Darayam Asur
Manasa Darayam Asur
Vaikuntha
Vaikuntha
Charana Ambujam
Sharanam Bhujam
comes together as Charanam Bhujam
Charanam
Vaikuntha Charanam Bhujam
Vaikuntha Charanam Bhujam
Te Sadhu Krita Sarvartha
Te Sadhu Kita Sarvartha
Yat Vatyanti Kamatmanaha Yat Vatyanti Kamatmanaha Manasa I'm sorry, it's the whole line. Manasa Daryam Asur
Manasadayam Asur
Vaikuntha Charanam Bhujam
Vaikuntha Charanam Bhujam
Te Sadhu Krita Sarvartha Yat Vat Yantikam Atmanaha Manasa Daryam Asur
Manasadayam Asur
Vaikuntha Charanam Bhujam
Vaikuntha Charanam Bhujam.
Should I do one more or was that three? Let's vote. Everybody want it another time or no? Yes, no? Who cares?
No.
Okay. Nobody's voting. Okay. Abstaining from votes. Okay. Te.
It's hard to get it out of the board, you know?
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't know if you want to try it again or if I can just give up if it's too hard. Okay. All of them.
All of them.
Sadhukrita.
Sadhukrita.
Having performed everything worthy of a saint.
Having performed everything worthy of a saint.
Sarva Artaha.
Sarva Artaha.
That which includes everything worthy.
That which includes everything worthy.
Yatva.
Yatva.
Knowing it well.
Knowing it well.
Atyantikam.
Atyantikam.
The ultimate.
The ultimate.
Atmanaha.
Atmanaha.
Of the living being.
Of the living being.
Manasa.
Manasa.
Within the mind.
Within the mind.
Narayam.
Narayam.
Asuhu.
Asuhu.
Sustained.
Sustained.
Vaikuntha.
Vaikuntha.
The Lord of the spiritual sky.
The Lord of the spiritual sky.
Charana Ambujam.
Charanam Bhujam.
Lotus feet.
Lotus feet.
Okay, translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Translation, I'll read the whole thing and we'll take it.
Is the microphone on?
Is it on?
Not button.
Yeah.
You can't hear too much? You still?
That's better.
No, okay. They all had performed all the principles of religion, and as a result, rightly decided that the lotus feet of the Lord Sri Krishna are the supreme goal of all. Therefore, they meditated upon his feet without interruption. This is Yudhishthira's brothers. Okay. Please repeat. They had all performed all the principles of religion.
They had all performed
All the principles of religion.
And as a result, rightly decided
that
the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna
the lotus feet of Lord Sri
are
Krishna,
the supreme goal of all.
the supreme goal of all.
Therefore they meditated upon his feet
Therefore they meditated upon his feet.
without interruption.
Without interruption.
Report. In the Bhagavad Gita 7:28, the Lord says that only those who have done pious deeds in previous lives and have become free from the results of all impious acts can concentrate upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. The Pandavas, not only in this life, but also in their previous lives, had always performed supreme pious work, and thus they are ever free from all the reactions of impious work. It is quite reasonable, therefore, that they concentrated their minds upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. According to Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha principles are accepted by persons who are not free from the results of impious action. Such persons affected with the contaminations of the above four principles cannot at once accept the lotus feet of the Lord in the spiritual sky. The Vaikuntha world is situated far beyond the material sky. The material sky is under the management of Durga Devi, or the material energy of the Lord. But the Vaikuntha world is managed by the personal energy of the Lord.
Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Was born in the darkest of ignorance, and the spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, now for my respectful obeisance and acknowledgement. Look at 728. I'm going to read that. Yesham Twantam Gatam Papam Yanam Punya Karmanam Te Dwanva Moha Nyamuta Vachante Mam Yidavataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are free from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So, this purport is about how if you've engaged in pious activities, well, certainly the Pandavas spent their whole life engaged in pious activities and devotional service directly to Krishna. So they were able to concentrate without interruption on the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. Now, I don't know about you all, but I tend to notice that I can't concentrate without interruption. So I got to keep on trying to do pious deeds and devotional service when I get there. So that entails being able to put aside the things that are not Krishna's lotus feet. And we've been talking about that lately. And these two verses about, this is two verses here, I think, about the brothers of Maharaj Yudhishthira and how they followed suit. They must have done the same kind of mental, meditational processes that he did that was described, that were described in a couple verses previously. And so I think it's relevant if I talk about that some more. Also, in the verse where Maharaj Yudhishthira, after text 41, in which he begins to amalgamate this mysterious process of amalgamating his senses into his mind and so on, all this amalgamating. It says in the purport, Maharaj Yudhishthira, like his brother Arjuna, began to concentrate and gradually became free from all material bondage. One point I want to make is Prabhupada uses the word concentration. He does not use the word mystic yoga. In the purport where Dhritarashtra went to the mountains and self-immolated by mystic fire, Prabhupada used the term mystic yoga. By a mystic yoga process, Dhritarashtra burned his own body up. And but Prabhupada uses the word concentration here. And in the next purport, near the end of the next purport, continuing this amalgamation process, when is this coming? Okay, one must, this is the process of ending material existence. One must not only think that he is Brahman, but must act like Brahman. So that word think is there again. So this is why I make my case. And I said before, and I thought, well, make a more complete case. I do not think it's a mysterious mystic yoga process. I think it's what we do. And also because when Yudhishthira began this, he says, like Arjuna. And a few verses back, what happens when Arjuna starts recovering from the overwhelming grief and the horrendous prospect of having to speak all this sad news to his brothers. When that's done, then he begins to get control of himself and he begins to remember Krishna's instructions to him, which is the Bhagavad Gita. So then Yudhisthira, like Arjuna, it says, begins to concentrate. And this amalgamation process, this word amalgamation might be kind of scary. First time I read it, I thought he had turned himself into air, something like air. And then the next verse, he's still walking around. That was kind of confusing. So it's a mental process. I mean, that's what I thought, years ago when I first read it. Then I was totally confused. But it's actually a mental process, and we do it all the time. So I got like 3 written pages of notes here, but I think maybe I can just talk about it, because I understand what I'm saying. In the Bhagavad Gita, first thing, it's a big amalgamation process in the Bhagavad Gita. Besides drawing the devotee to Krishna and saying, surrender to me, worship me, become my devotee, it also puts material things in their place. So first off, you're not the body. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, verses 12 through 30, you're not that body. You're eternal. The body is temporary, like other temporary things. So for separation. Then in chapter 3, there's a verse which I always say a little bit wrong, let's see. The conditioned soul, under the influence of the modes of material nature, thinks himself the doer of those things that are done by material nature. So we are under the influence of false ego. Anyways, so we think I am the doer of those things that the modes are doing. We think I'm this body, we think I'm the doer. No, the modes are part of material nature. The body is part of material nature. Later on, Krishna says this divine energy of mine, which is eternal, is under my control, very difficult to overcome. Again, further separation. Now all this business of senses and body and modes are packed up, amalgamated into Krishna's divine energy, the inferior energy, which he said in the beginning of chapter 7, talks about there's 8 elements of the inferior energy. And the soul is different. The soul is trying to exploit this stuff. The soul is eternal and different. It's a superior energy. So again, this separation. And this begins, it's put back into Krishna's energy. This is Krishna's divine energy. And then it's Brahman. It's one of the 4 definitions of Brahman in the glossary of the Bhagavad Gita. That sometimes that word Brahman is used to mean the sum total material energy, because it's Krishna's energy. It's ultimately spiritual, even though we perceive it as material. And even though it's inferior because it doesn't have its own consciousness, it's still Krishna's energy, so it's divine energy. And then, if we had any doubts, there's chapter 11, that huge vision, which the whole world that Arjuna is familiar with turns into this vision of Krishna. Just Krishna, and then becomes all devouring death, all these forms of Krishna, and then eating everybody. So if that doesn't do it, to separate out the material from the spiritual, so you just keep amalgamating, pushing it back, putting it where it goes, which is where it came from. And that's this process of amalgamation. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's the same thing. Starts out in 2nd canto. Well, it first introduces this idea in the 1st canto. Yudhisthira is going through this process. Okay. Now we are a little bit put off by the word amalgamation. It seems really mysterious. So we may not notice, but it's the same thing, because then in the 2nd canto, this whole world is what? It's the universal form of the Lord. And everything that we see around us that we think we know what it is actually part of the universal form of the Lord, which means it's His energy, and it's not what we think it is. So it's beginning to separate. Then, so many lessons. Describing creation in the 3rd canto, how each of those 8 elements mentioned in Bhagavad Gita comes out of the one before it. So first there's the false ego, and then mind, and ether, and air, like that. And each one has one more sensory quality. False ego is about the mind. Okay, but that each one has more in the mind. But anyway, by the time you get to the gross elements, starting with ether, which carries sound, so each one comes out of the one before it with one more quality that's unique to it. And then all these qualities in the next one plus one more that's unique to that, all the way down to earth. The sense of smell comes from earth, taste and water, form and fire, touch and air, sound and ether. So the five senses, the five gross elements, and each one coming out of the other. Then what happens, okay, that's it. That's quite a bit right there to think about, okay, that's what these senses are. That's where they came from, that's what they're made of. But then Maharaj Parikshit is facing death, that certain set time coming, and he's, a strong man. He's not like dying of cancer or something. And he's facing death. It's going to come, and he knows when it's going to come. And he has accepted it. So that's a lot right there. If you have a good body, a good kingdom, life is going good, and you still have a lot to give, to accept that death is coming at a certain time and he's sitting there waiting for it, that's a big deal. And to help him to make sure that he is really, really able to put aside these material attachments. In the 12th canto, Shukadeva Goswami describes the annihilation, the winding up of creation. And there's a couple verses where each element goes back into the one before. Goes back, all the way back to even past the three modes of nature into Pradhana, which is the original, totally non-differentiated material energy that's indescribable. It's eternal and it's indescribable. It has no form, it has no size, it has no anything. It just exists as Krishna's energy, totally unformed. Because size comes from space, which is ether. So it doesn't have anything. Maybe that's the original singularity that they say the Big Bang came from. It's it's indescribable. Of course, the singularity idea, they try to describe it and everything. So anyway, this is described as indescribable. And it's Krishna's energy, and it's totally unformed, undifferentiated. And so this is what everything goes back to. So whenever we are faced with some difficulty, suppose we have a sweet tooth and we realize sweets are bad for us. So we have a craving for sweets and we got to give up sweets. So you think, well, it's just my senses. I'm not this body. This is my senses. They're in the body. It's made of material nature. The material nature is just Krishna's energy. So why should I listen to it? I don't have to. I'm a soul. So we're amalgamating. That's what we do in Krishna consciousness. And anytime we have like I had some difficulty with some people, some devotees, and I felt like, why did they do that to me? Because they hurt my feelings. Why did they do that to me? Why? I spent years wondering why they did that. And feeling hurt. And one day it dawned on me that the spirit soul, under the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of things done by the modes of nature. Well, that doesn't just apply to me, it applies to them. So why should I be upset about a bunch of modes? So obviously they were under the influence of the modes, or everything would have been sweet and nice. So they were under the modes, so why should I be upset? So I amalgamated. It goes back into the modes, their behavior. So if we apply the philosophy, we are amalgamating all the time, like Yudhisthira did. So this is a philosophical process, not a mystic yoga process. This is my case. I'm making my case. I don't think we have to be afraid of it as some mysterious mystic yoga process that we can't do. Definitely as the case with Dhritarashtra Maharaj. He did use a mystic yoga process to burn up his body. And we don't need to know, and maybe don't want to know, how to do that. I mean, maybe it would be dangerous. We'd have a really, really bad day and we knew how to do that. I don't know what we do, to ourselves. Just meditate, and then. So we don't need to know it. We don't want to know. We're not supposed to know it. It's not our path at all. It was only his path because he had made offenses and he could not take the devotional path. And so we apply the process of this amalgamation, this philosophical process, all through our life we do, and when we know we're facing death, then we're gonna intensify it. We're gonna become more focused. We're gonna concentrate and hold our focus and really sort through our life, because that will be. Unless we're going to hang on, no, I'm going to die, don't let me die. But, if we approach, like, say, oncoming death, and even though now we don't know when our death is coming, and it's supposed to feel healthy, but we know it's coming anyway, so we can still apply this, but we won't be concentrating as hard as when we know death is coming. But we will be doing this, and we start out externally. Devotees should lighten their load of stuff as they go along, so that there's less stuff, and more simple, more able to focus on Krishna. And devotees sometimes, they know they're dying of cancer or something, they start giving away stuff. When they accept it, they start giving away stuff. So why die surrounded by stuff you're attached to? How's that going to help you? So when you understand you can't use it anymore, then you give it away. And when you understand you're not using something anymore, then you can give it away or sell it or something. Maybe somebody else can use it. So all of this is the external part, like Marjus just started out by giving up his royal dress. That's external. And he gave up his royal position. He gave it to his grandson. Then he gave up his interactions with those around him. And then he went internal and he gave up his attachments and put everything in his mind philosophically where it belongs and kept it there by concentration. And so he was able to then leave home and just live simply as it's described. It's going to happen. I don't think it described it yet. I think we got that coming. And then he's going to go back to Godhead. So because he knew he wanted to go back to Godhead, he knew he wanted to be with Krishna. We might face with that, maybe struggling, but he made up his mind and he knew where he wanted to go. So that's what he wanted to talk about, and his brothers are following suit. So that means they're also going through this process. And that means that's described here for a reason, not so that we'll go a bit confused and say, wow, that was mystic yoga. I believe it's described for the reason that we're supposed to do it too, because these are great examples for us. And all the information is there. That's what we're studying about in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Bhagavatam. And Sri Upanishad says you have to understand knowledge and nescience, tomato. But I was going to look that up, which I'm really supposed to say. But side by side with knowledge, nescience and knowledge, side by side. And does nescience mean, okay, we gotta actually know practical stuff, practical work? Yeah, but by the time you include practical work like your Varna work as being part of this world as nescience, side by side with knowledge, you have already amalgamated your practical work into material energy. You've already done that. Even if you're just thinking of that as means I gotta know my practical stuff as well as my spiritual stuff. You've already admitted that it's part of the material world, so you've already done some amalgamating. This is a constant process that we do. So then when we have an argument or something, we say, you should just amalgamate that. Well, I'm not ready to amalgamate that. There'll be more of a true argument, and we would know what we're arguing about. Anyways.
So how are you defining this, like a little recap, amalgamation?
Amalgamation in the dictionary means put two things together into one.
Okay.
Like you could amalgamate two businesses into one, like that. And so we're amalgamating. Yudhishthira was amalgamating his senses into, how did it first say? He amalgamated all the sense organs into the mind. Well, you can do that. You can say, what are the sense organs except for with my mind? So it's all mental. So I just, it's just a mind thing. Then the mind into life into breathing. That was it's a little mysterious, his particular route. But I think different routes are given, and you can do it. I think it's the same process. I'm making this case. I'm trying to make this case that it's all the same process. We're putting things back into where they belong. ultimately putting material things back into Brahman, or the pradhana, the original undifferentiated material energy. Because we have to be released, we are different, we are spirit souls going back to Godhead, where it's all spiritual and there's no inferior energy, there's no unconscious matter up there and no modes. So, but how are we going to get there from here? Part of it is knowing nishanas, which is amalgamating all these material attachments into where they came from and back to what their origin is, so that we have separated ourselves in our mind, completely separated ourselves from those attachments. So I believe that this is about disposing of attachments in an orderly way so that you really did it. That's what I believe this is about. And that Maharaj Yudhishthira's brothers also did the same thing, and they followed him. Then you're free to meditate on Krishna's lotus feet, free to remember Krishna's pastimes, free to chant his names. Then you're totally free of all material impediments. And that's the same thing as what they do in the spiritual world. So if that's all we have in the material world, then we're already 1 foot in the spiritual world. So, questions or comments? Yeah.
Amalgamation is simply another word for yoga too.
Another word for yoga? Wow.
Yeah, because the definition of yoga is union.
Oh.
And as synonyms for amalgamation are combination, union, blend, mixture, fusion, synthesis, and composite. But interesting enough, amalgamation is a noun, but it says the definition is the action, comma, process, comma, or result of combining or uniting.
Yeah.
It can be the result or the actual process. It's amalgamation. This is amalgamation. That means actually the results.
Yeah.
It's like an object, noun. And then amalgamation acts like a verb because it's the action of doing it, or the process of doing it at the same time.
The process is a noun too. So, but I would like to argue this a little bit, that amalgamation, when applied to yoga, union in real yoga is union of purpose and love, not union of becoming one. And in amalgamation, it's union becoming one thing. Like you can amalgamate one business into another, and then it's one business. So you amalgamate the senses into the mind, that's one part of material energy.
So that's
it's
a
all
different
one
use
thing.
of union.
Yeah, we don't amalgamate ourselves with God. That's my body.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's not really, you can't really be used as a synonym for yoga.
So that union is not the same union.
Not the same union.
Then this dovetailing is a type of amalgamation.
Maybe, but amalgamation is used in Prabhupada's books is with the negative stuff.
Oh.
The stuff we want to get rid of. Okay, we don't want to be all bound up by our senses and attached to our senses when we want to go back to Godhead. So we amalgamate the senses and say, well, they're just made of, they came from the mind. So it's all part of the mind. And then they say, well, the mind came from the false ego, came from life, which is a bit abstract term here, but so many other places it said where the different elements came from. And life, for Maharaj Yudhishthira, life was being an emperor, being a warrior, being an emperor, being a member of a wonderful family, being a king, being this particular person in this particular body. So I would still make the case that the word life is sort of an abstract summary of the whole material situation. So it goes back in, the elements go back into the origin of the elements. Elements are brought out and made and distinguished one from another, and then they're put back in and their distinguishing differences are taken away. And then they become one again, but that's the material energy, the pradhana, which is undifferentiated. Material energy, so it all goes back to that, but the soul is not part of that. And the soul is not one with Krishna in the same way. That we were never blended undifferentiatingly with Krishna. The matter was all blended without differentiation. But we never were. We were always individuals. So as the word amalgamated here is used here, I would not cross it into the yoga department.
So it's still a chencha beta type.
Yeah. We keep that in one in substance, but eternally individual.
Different, yeah.
Never undifferentiated.
That's the key you use, that amalgamation used by Prabhupada was in a negative sense.
Yeah, with the negative
Like this-
stuff that we have to let go of in order to go back to
Yeah.
Godhead. Yeah, and I would not use that word for the positive, because then it brings in mind body possibilities.
Right.
So, anything else? No, it's only 10 after. Everybody gets more job done. Yeah, did you
Can we
agree?
do something about the writing of the board if we can schedule someone? If nobody, I would do it, but then I need to.
Oh, well, usually somebody does it, but, and I didn't.
I was doing it until Sridevi came, so then I stopped.
Yeah, also Colleen.
Colleen, yeah,
does it
Colleen
well.
has to like let us know whether she's gonna be here or
Yeah.
not. A certain time she's not here, we have to do it, and I will start back again, but it's nicer to have something written up, you know?
Yeah, it helps, yeah.
Okay.
Did I ever ask anybody to repeat it? No, I did. I forgot to even offer for anybody to say it.
I think you did.
Did I?
But it was written up and
Okay.
we had
You
our
want to
plan.
write up the board?
Okay. Anyways. I so mentioned if nobody does it, but I'm sorry I didn't think of it today.
Yeah, you're right. If you get someone to do it, then it's easier, you
Yeah.
know? You know?
Yeah. I just sort of forgot.
I did it for a while, like,
Yeah.
so Sridevi was
Team of
it.
scribes.
Well, there's going to be once in a while a day like this where nobody makes it.
Why is it such a low attendance today?
I don't know.
Everybody's not here. They'll be out here tomorrow, Maharaj is here.